Without a doubt, deprivation causes mental distress, and these two things combined can have a big impact on families, making parenting difficult and affecting a child's early development. Our job is to figure out what it is we can do to help, and a good place to start is by listening and learning from each other. In the old days, we used to call these meetings lunch clubs. Now it's called a brown bag meeting, but it's the same thing. Over a sandwich and a cuppa, we discuss topics of shared interest within the broad confines of perinatal social health. The point is, between us, there's a lot of expertise, so let's share it.
So I'll start by introducing myself. So I'm Michael Galbraith, clinical psychologist, family therapist by training. I heard Colin Trevarthen, who's a lovely man, who talks about the innate musicality of babies and early communication. Is based in Edinburgh University, and they used to have lunchtime clubs, and so he and Lynn Murray and other people in that group would get together over sandwiches, and I think possibly there was a glass of wine or two. But obviously we can't do that these days, but and talk about ideas. So I like to think that we're following in a fine tradition. My context. How are we doing in terms of time? Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Are we okay to turn lights down? Is that yeah? Yeah. So my context is I work in the parent-baby service at PSS. PSS is a charity third sector organisation, and the parent-baby service works with children aged conception to 2 and their families. We focus a lot on early relationships, interaction, attachment, that kind of stuff. And a lot of the literature is around the effect of parents on babies, on how we can support infants' development. And of course, that's incredibly important. That's really valuable. A lot of the research is also focused on mums and babies, kind of exclusively, and sometimes it can almost feel like kind of we give all the responsibility to mums for babies' development. So as a family therapist, I'm interested in terms of how whole families work, how the network around a baby works. And I was also thinking from a systemic point of view that it's not a one-way street, that of course we affect babies' development, but as a parent, I didn't mention being a parent. My kids are quite big now. How old are they? I should know that, shouldn't I? 21 and a half and 24, 23. Oh, after 20, it gets a bit. My son's the older one, and he's just got a puppy, a Cocker Spaniel puppy. So I feel like I'm a doggy granddad. I don't know whether that's an actual thing. So yeah, as a parent, I feel that having babies affected me. I mean, I think I influenced them, but I think they influenced me as well. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Oh, that's a bit small, isn't it? Can you see that? So I thought, well, why talk about one thing when you can talk about 4 huge topics all in like 25 minutes? I wanted to give people a choice of ideas to talk about. So here are some fairly big topics from family therapy and our work. So I'm going to give you an overview of circular causality, circular questioning as a technique, which are core family therapy concepts. I've come up with this word, the chalitunity. I don't know whether that's ever been used. So the challenge and opportunity that is having a baby. And then possibly, if I've got time, about compassion and how we offer compassion and how we receive compassion. And I'm going to do that in, how long have I got now? 25 minutes. That's hilarious. No, 20 minutes. Right. Elsa Jones, who's a family therapist, said human behaviour is best understood from the point of view that actions are both responses to other actions and triggers for further actions. So it's this idea that what we do doesn't just come out of nowhere and doesn't just stop with what we do. So the alternative to circular causality is linear causality. A causes B. And that's kind of like the kind of billiard ball model of physics and mental health. Person A does something to person B, or a trigger causes a behavior. But with circular causality, we're thinking actually there was always something that came before A, and there's always something that comes after B. And sometimes what comes after B might be C and D and E, and sometimes those things loop back and have an effect on A. Okay, so actions and interactions don't happen in isolation. And systemically, we like that because it takes into account both the social context that people are in, but also the life context that people are in. So there's a lot of talk these days about trauma-informed care when we're thinking about adverse childhood experiences. And part of trauma-informed care is that we think it's not about who you are kind of biologically, innately as an individual, it's about what's happened to you. And so in a way, circular causality is part of that explanation, that if you're showing troubled or troubling behaviour, it's not just because you've decided to do that one day. Oh, I know, today I'm going to be psychotic or very challenging or very depressed. Actually, that's a reaction to your experiences, I would suggest. So I've said life is more of a group dance, less of a solo piece. And I thought we could all get up and do a group dance to illustrate that. But it's funny, isn't it? It's kind of the images that we have of people. There's a quote from Einstein that says that we tend to see ourselves as individuals, and he calls it an optical delusion of consciousness. It's actually a myth that we are separate and individual. So, I mean, the other kind of ancient tradition that sort of talks about that is Ubuntu, which is an African word, which means I am because we are. I am because we are. And again, it's about this circularity that people exist in social and relational contexts and material contexts as well. So Jane Ellis, who's a trainee and now qualified clinical psychologist, did her research with our service and possibly with some people here around the effects of austerity on being a parent of babies. And parents talked about how it affected how they both felt as a parent and their options. So if you put people in economically deprived situations, that will affect what they do. It's not, they don't have a completely free choice about what they do in those situations. And note, circular causality does not mean that everybody has equal responsibility. Okay, so that's really important, because just because we're looking at the effect between two people doesn't mean that the power is equal or that they share equal responsibility for what's going on. Okay, so safeguarding still applies. Parents still have more responsibilities for looking after children than children do for eliciting caregiving behaviour. Yeah. So, okay, 5 minutes. So I'm going to give you a chance to talk because I like to do that. So just on your tables in pairs maybe, have a very quick conversation. I'm just talking like 2 or 3 minutes, so we're not have got time to kind of unpack this in great detail. But taking the idea of circular causality, can you think of an example either from your working life or your own life, if you want to think about that, or the news? I mean, we could get very political very quickly about how events are understood. And if you understand events just within a narrow time frame, they look one way. And if you understand events in a wider time frame, they could look quite differently. I'm being quite careful here, feeling that I'm being on video and just choosing my words carefully. But just want to give you a chance to talk in pairs about the idea of circular causality and the difference it makes compared to the idea of linear causality. Has that made sense? Yeah? Okay, so off you go for 2.5 minutes. If it's okay, I'm not going to ask for feedback from your small group discussion. We've got a chance for kind of larger group discussion in a few minutes. So if it's okay, I'm going to kind of leave those discussions kind of with you. Circular questioning. So connected with the idea of circular causality is the idea of circular questioning. So I just thought I'd offer this to you because as a way of as a practical output really from that idea. So I think that idea about people being individuals and about linear causality is so steeped into our society that we almost don't recognize it. We don't see it because it's become so normal. So we ask questions like, why did you do that? What were you thinking or feeling when you did that? So we're asking people to kind of explain themselves. You know, what was it kind of about you, in you, that made you do what you did? And sometimes that might be helpful, but it kind of implies that they're living and thinking and feeling in a vacuum. Potentially. So circular questions might be things like, what does baby value most about how you soothe them? What does baby value most about how you soothe them? What effect has baby's arrival had on your relationship with your partner? Do you think your partner would describe it in the same way? So you're asking about relationships, you're asking about the effects of people on each other and their descriptions of that. And you're not assuming that there is a universal truth about that. You're not assuming that everybody's going to describe that experience in the same way. In fact, we're probably going to assume the opposite, that different people will describe things differently. So circular questions are a way of looking at those processes that go on between people rather than within somebody. And I would invite us to think about what difference it would make if you know, collectively we sort of had more of a focus on that, on the between rather than the within. It's not that the within is not happening. Of course we have thoughts and feelings, but it's seeing those in the context in which they arise. I've got a few slightly quizzical faces. Does anyone want to ask a question or make a comment? Having not given you a chance to feedback about your small group discussions, I'm now inviting any comments or questions about what I've just said. By the way, we are covering quite a large part of the foundation course in family therapy that normally takes, you know, kind of several weeks in about 20 minutes. Hi, Claire.
So one of the things that we touched upon was, you know, when you said, actually, you know, before I do this or before I react in this way, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, and that person's also bringing their history into the same space. But what we talked about is actually, when you say it's obvious, but it feels really hard to talk about it. And then when we started to kind of just use a couple of examples from our own lives about when it's obvious that that's what's been happening, is people are bringing history into that moment where we're having, let's say it's a difficult moment, there's a lot of history in the moment both sides, but it's really hard to talk about it. And so when you were talking, I was thinking, would it be easy to talk about it if you had a therapist or a third person who was somehow filtering or able to kind of create some space? Because it can be quite sparky, can't it, talking about histories. And I think, I just think a lot of people in my life, myself included, don't necessarily have the language or necessarily have the skills to use or enough practice at using the language.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get into, I, in that situation, relating to what you're saying, get into a position of trying to convince the other person of my point of view. Yeah. Instead of, one of the other key concepts within family therapy is taking a position of curiosity. Okay, so you think I'm completely wrong. Okay, what makes you say that? What frame are you using to come to that conclusion? What is that based on? Help me understand why you think I'm so wrong. But naturally, we kind of like, I'm not wrong, Yeah. It's tricky. It's tricky.
And I guess with small children, very small children, why did you do that? It's pointless, because when they're very small, they won't remember. Well, even if the concept why has kind of sense to them, I don't know why they jumped up and down on the sofa when they've been told 2 minutes previously not to do that. Why did they do that? Does it matter to them? Would they be able to answer that question? It wouldn't, would it? It's just, you just have to. So it's not a.
Yeah. And we might kind of have more understandings in terms of their being bored, loving the physicality of bouncing on a sofa. Isn't that what sofas are meant for anyway? But we have to kind of expand our view that if we're trying to get the kids dressed and out the door for school, bouncing on the sofa feels like a kind of an unhelpful thing to do. But they're in a different place. They've got other contextual factors going on for them, like the bounciness of sofas. Can I carry on? In a way, that's a nice kind of segue into the next bit, and then I'll finish, because we're supposed to have a large group discussion, aren't we? So I don't want to hog the time. Oh.
I don't think we worry about it. It was just a structure.
Okay. But is it all right if I just finish the slides and then we'll. Okay.
All I'm saying is take your time.
Okay. So I was saying to Nikki before, the NSPCC, with the help input of Amanda Jones, produced a series of videos a while ago called Breakdown or Breakthrough. They used to be on YouTube. I couldn't find that. Have you seen those? I don't know whether they've been removed, but so basically they talked about the idea that when we have a baby, is it inevitable? I think it's quite likely that we do a bit of a kind of life review of kind of like, because we're at a turning point. We're going from being the younger generation to a middle generation, becoming a parent. It's a big thing. And it's an opportunity to do things differently than were done to you. And lots of parents that I meet and say, actually, that they want to do things differently. They understand that maybe their parents were kind of doing their best. Sometimes they feel that their parents, really struggled to do that. But anyway, they want to kind of do things differently. And it might feel like a blank page, because a newborn baby or a baby in utero is a kind of a fresh start, a new person. But I've kind of must have been feeling a bit poetic when I made these slides, because I've put it might feel like a blank page, but it's in a book that has earlier chapters. So we never enter the job of parenting with a blank sheet in terms of ourselves, because we bring our own experience of being parented and other relationships and our current relationship context and status. But I was thinking about one of the opportunities that babies present is around the idea of compassion. Paul Gilbert developed an approach called compassion-focused therapy. And I've gone into a bit of detail, but basically that we've got these different systems, emotional, mental systems, drive, threat, and comfort. And our threat system is kind of inbuilt in us, because it's about spotting danger. And if you're not good at spotting danger, from an evolutionary point of view, your genes don't tend to carry on. So we're designed to spot danger. The drive system is about kind of getting out there, hunting down the woolly mammoth, or getting a really good deal on a pair of, what are those trainers called? Balenciaga trainers or whatever. Anyway, so kind of achieving stuff. And again, if your drive system hasn't kind of developed in evolutionary terms, then if you're just kind of like a sort of really laid back cave person, then you might not survive through the winter if you haven't gone out and collected all the berries and nuts and stuff that you need. So our drive system tends to be quite well developed as well. Our comfort system, which is our ability to soothe ourselves and other people, to emotionally regulate ourselves, is something that has to be developed. We have the capacity when we're born as babies, but it's not fully developed. It's not mature. And like with a lot of things, what helps to develop that comfort system is the experience of being comforted. So Paul Gilbert developed this theory around compassion-focused work. And compassion, which literally means to suffer with, is the idea of having there's a little person by the window. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, sorry. Feeling that you are seen, understood, connected with emotionally in an accepting, non-judgmental way, sharing joy. And I put beneficent love. I think we don't talk about love enough in our work, but I think it has all sorts of connotations, and I think kind of mass marketing has kind of taken the word love and kind of used it in various ways. So I've put beneficent love to emphasize a kind of a healthy love. And I was thinking about, so Paul Gilbert highlights that we can feel compassion towards others, we can receive compassion from people, and we can feel compassionate towards ourselves. So there's kind of like, 3 different aspects of feeling compassionate. And I was thinking about, again, quite a few of the parents that I talk to find it easier to be compassionate towards other people, including their baby, than they do towards themselves. That they're quite self-critical. And I was thinking about the opportunity that babies have, because babies, when they're not having a difficult moment, can be quite compassionate towards parents. They're looking to their parents in a loving way, if the parents can see that. But the act of being compassionate towards baby is an opportunity for parents to then start to apply that to themselves, treating themselves in the same way that they treat baby, as long as they're feeling loving towards baby, which isn't always a given. But when we have that opportunity to develop that skill of caring for somebody in a completely unconditional way, then we can take that and start to apply that to ourselves.